The range was a great experience. I met a lot of really amazing people and leaders, but there were some rough nights on the range. That's what people don't talk about.
Would you like to talk about them, Malcolm?
This is going to turn into a therapy session.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Ryan, president of the University of Virginia, and I'd like to welcome all of you back to another season of Inside UVA. This podcast is a chance for me to speak with some of the amazing people in the university community and to learn more about what they do and who they are. My hope is that listeners will ultimately have a better understanding of the university and a deeper appreciation of the remarkably talented and dedicated people who make UVA the institution it is. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Malcolm Brogdon, who is a professional basketball player, activist, philanthropist, and leader. He plays for the Boston Celtics, where last season he was named Sixth Man of the Year. Before this, Malcolm played for the Indiana Pacers, and before that, the Milwaukee Bucks, where he was Rookie of the Year. Malcolm is also busy off the court. He's involved in the National Basketball Players Association, where he steers collective bargaining efforts, and he founded several nonprofits dedicated to educational gender and health equity. Malcolm, as many of you know, is a double who. He earned a bachelor's degree in history, a master's in public policy, and he was awarded the 2016 Ernest H. Earn Distinguished Student Award. His Virginia basketball number 15, has been retired and hangs from the rafters inside the John Paul Jones Arena. Malcolm personifies what it means to excel and to lead, or in other words, to be both great and good. And today, we are incredibly fortunate to have him on the podcast. Malcolm, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about what off-season looks like for a national basketball player.
I think a lot of people, assume we might be moving all over the place and maybe doing a lot. But really, it's very calm. It's really a time for me personally to reconnect with my family, to be around friends. Some guys stay in their market cities for the team they play for, but usually that tends to be younger players. And then as you get older in the NBA and you become a vet, you go back home. You go back to wherever your home base is, your family. And for me, that's Atlanta. I have a house here. My wife, my two daughters. We come back to Atlanta. I get to be with my family. I get to be with my friends, and just be back in a familiar place that I call home.
So you mentioned your family. I understand that your worldview was shaped in significant part by your parents, and I wonder if you could talk about them a little.
Absolutely. My parents met at Oberlin College, liberal arts school in the Midwest, and then ended up getting married. Both of them went to Indiana University. My dad got his law degree there. My mom got a PhD in psychology, and so I think since day one, just education, getting accelerated degrees, excelling in the classroom has always been one of the best things that my parents have handed down to me and my two older brothers. My two older brothers are attorneys here in Atlanta. And for me, coming out of high school, it was important that I get a good education in college. Basketball was something that I was really pursuing, that my mom, always was 1,000% behind me, driving me to all my AU practices,
Right.
really just supporting me through everything. But at the same time, it was you have to have at least a B average in the classroom,
Right.
or you won't be doing any of these other things.
So that's related to my next question, which is how did you end up at the University of Virginia? I'm assuming you're going to say because of the great combination of athletics and academics.
I think that's a great assumption. UVA wasn't a school that was on my radar. As a basketball player growing up in the South, you hear about Florida had a very, very good team when I was in middle school, high school, had players like Al Horford. I mean, they had a lot of NBA players coming out. But you hear about Vanderbilt, you hear about some of the really excellent academic schools. UVA wasn't on my radar. I didn't know a lot about UVA.
Yeah.
Of course, you know about UNC and Duke, but Tony Bennett ended up coming to one of my games my junior year, AAU, and ended up offering me a scholarship, really pursuing me. And once I looked into it, my mom had a very good knowledge,
Right.
surrounding the university, and understood how excellent it was academically. And once I got privy to that, and I understood who Tony Bennett was as a person
Right.
and how he was rebuilding this program and how I could be one of the building blocks behind that and a part of that, it was really a no-brainer for me. I had 5 official visits set up. Virginia was my first one, Vanderbilt was my second, and then I think maybe Notre Dame was my third, and then two others. And I came on my official to UVA, and I think I went home the next day and committed on the spot, called Coach Bennett and committed to the university. So
No kidding.
it was
Rem-
always UVA.
Remind me what year this was. So was this pretty early on in Tony's tenure then, right?
It was. This was Tony's second or third year.
Okay.
I was his second recruiting class
Wow.
at UVA. Joe Harris was his first. So I knew I understood all that coming out of high school. I understood I could go to Vanderbilt with Coach Stallings and be a part of something that had already, a well-oiled machine. But I knew UVA, they were rebuilding, and I could be a part of that and possibly be a part of something special.
And you had great success when you were here and could have left after your fourth year to go pro, but you decided to come back for another year. What motivated that decision?
My mom. My mom has always been my biggest influence, my biggest supporter. Really has meant the world to me. I think, for me, education it was huge in college. I wanted to do well in the classroom. I had already committed to the Baton School. I had already finished, the first year of the public policy program. For me, remember thinking I can go to the NBA, but I will be a second round draft pick or undrafted, or I could come back and finish my public policy degree and hopefully help my stock go up, possibly be a first round pick. And Tony Bennett always he sold me the dream, and it wasn't just a dream; it became a reality. He told me when I was really considering that. He said, of course, he wanted me back, but he said, you can have it all. You don't have to go to the NBA right now. You
Right.
can come back, you can finish your degree, you can finish what you started, but you can also finish your career here and go down as one of the great UVA players and people that have come through the university, and still go to the NBA. The NBA is not going anywhere. So I really took his advice. I thought he really was a great mentor in that process. And I stayed another year, and it was everything I wanted it to be.
Yeah, well, it seemed like a really smart decision in retrospect.
Yeah, I thought it worked out. A lot of guys in that position end up leaving. You see guys, did it before me, guys still doing it. Some guys leave early and they leave
Yeah,
too early and
right.
they end up overseas or they end up, not playing basketball because it was just not a great move. And then there are guys that leave early and it works out. But, I wanted to, finish my education. I wanted to give myself the best foundation as possible by finishing what I started at UVA.
You mentioned Tony Bennett as a mentor. Other mentors stick out to you during your time at UVA?
Richie McKay, who was there, he wasn't there my last year at UVA, but he was there my first 4 years at UVA. He was the head assistant under Tony Bennett, was a huge mentor for me. Someone that always encouraged me on the court, someone that always told me I could be an NBA player and encouraged me to really just be who I was and be confident in who I was. As far as I think he was probably the main one that I think was a very positive mentor for me.
Right. So many people with good reason look to you to be a leader. And I'm curious, when you look around, who are your role models as leaders? Who do you look up to? Who influenced you in that respect?
I have a shirt on right now. Muhammad Ali, formerly known as Cassius Clay, is one of my biggest heroes. Just he stood up for what he believed in. He was unapologetically black and himself. He didn't care what people thought about him, and he cared and loved people. No matter what color you were, he cared about you. He loved you. And he wanted to see everybody do well. Outside of that, really, it's my mom. I think the way she raised me and my brothers, really sacrificing everything. My mom was working a full-time job at Morehouse College in Atlanta, being a full-time professor, and then a dean, and then a provost, and she moved her way up in the ranks, and now she's tenured. But man, she grinded just to see me and my brothers do well. Doing everything she could to put us in the best situation possible.
So talk a little bit about being the sixth man. What attracted you? Was that role attractive to you? And if so, why? And for those who are listening who don't know, Malcolm was the sixth man of the year for the Celtics. And as I understand it, you were brought on with that role in mind. Was it a hard decision for you to take on that role, or was it something you were looking forward to?
Well, I was definitely coming from a situation in Indiana with the Pacers where we had not, they were in the process of rebuilding. The team was getting younger. The guys that I've played alongside the previous 3 years had been traded away. I was one of the few remaining veterans on the team. I knew Boston would be a place that I could win. I had a few options, but Boston stuck out to me because of the winning culture, because of how the fans and the people there love the Celtics and love basketball. And then, that they have, as many banners as the Lakers. They have the most in the NBA. So the culture there and the winning culture is really what I wanted to be a part of. But initially, when Brad Stevens registered interest in me, Brad Stevens is the president of the Boston Celtics. It was, we love Malcolm. We think he'd fit in really well here. He'd be a great addition to help us get over that, that hump and help us win another championship. But we have a great core here. We have a great, a group of guys, and we have great chemistry. He's going to have to come off the bench. And for me, that was definitely an adjustment. It's not an adjustment as far as on the court physically. It's a mental adjustment.
Yeah.
It's a understanding what your role would be off the bench. That'll be the first time in my career I'd come off the bench. So I knew it would be an adjustment. I tackled it head on. I sort of identified it as a challenge, a new challenge that I could really tackle in my career. And I thought I did. I thought I tackled it. I thought I embraced it. It takes some humbling to do something like that, because I feel like I've had a very good career. I've accomplished a good amount of things in my NBA career, but to win at that highest level in the NBA, sometimes you have to sacrifice.
Right.
And I saw a team in Boston where, it was a great locker room. I'd known some of the guys in the locker room, and it was a group of guys that were willing to each sacrifice in their own way. So I knew I wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah. So you're also a vice president of the NBA Players Association. What led you to that role, and what does that entail?
This will be my fourth year as one of the vice presidents. There are five of us, I believe,
Okay.
vice presidents, and there are I think about either eight or nine positions on the executive committee that I fall under, that represent the 450 NBA players. So we are the executive committee of the Players Union, and I've really enjoyed it. For me, I saw it as an opportunity not only to lead and be a voice for the players, but an opportunity to learn and learn the business side of basketball, what goes on behind closed doors, rather than being just so focused on the game and working hard and everything that goes into the finished product on the court. I wanted to understand the ins and outs of the business, just in case after I'm done playing, I can really understand it. Whether I'm in a position to advocate for players after I'm done playing, whatever it may be, I would be ready for that and had some experience in that way. So it's a position I've really enjoyed. I've learned a lot. We actually just renegotiated the CBA, which is in some really very simple terms, it's the new contract as far as how players will get paid, how the money will go up, the TV deals. I mean, all of that
Right.
is basically a part of the negotiation. It's the PA and the NBA agreeing on this CBA. So we just renegotiated that, which was a huge success for us. We thought we got a good deal, and I learned a lot out of that process as well.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that. What are some of the key issues facing the Players Association, and what do your colleagues care the most about?
One of the things I hear a lot, and one of the things I've observed is, as far as a union, we get labeled as one of the NBPA gets labeled as one of the best unions, if not the best union in all of professional sports.
Really?
We're very progressive. We a lot of the time we are gold standard as far as the steps we're taking, the relationship we have with our counterpart in the NBA. They see us as peers, and we function as peers. We make decisions together. And I think in a lot of professional sports, you don't have sort of that synergy between the NBA and the players union that I think we have. I think we've hired good leaders. I think we have just intelligent, thoughtful leaders on the committee that do represent the 450 well. And I think we've done a good job. I think we continue to take steps every year. But the overall goal at the end of the day, there are a lot of nuances of the CBA and a lot of nuances of the negotiations that happen between the NBA and the NBPA. The goal is to grow the pie, is to continue to grow the money, and to make sure that the NBA and the players each get their fair share, to keep the businesses going, to keep the players happy. And Adam Silver's job is to be the voice for the owners or the governors of each of the NBA teams. So to make sure that everybody feels heard on the players' side and the governor's side, and continue to grow the pie in the best way possible, so that everybody can stay happy.
So speaking of growing the pie and sharing it, college sports have changed quite a bit since you left with the NIL and the transfer portal. And I'm wondering, either from your time in college or your time with the NBA, and particularly on the Players Association, um, what are your thoughts about where college sports are now, and especially with respect to name, image, and likeness?
Man, the landscape has changed so much. It's for me, it's unrecognizable. I still don't know the entirety of the ins and outs of the NIL deals and sort of the landscape in general of college sports now. But I think they've taken a huge step, a step that I love that players can benefit, monetary wise off of their name, image, and likeness. I think that was something that has been missing for a long, long time.
Right.
That all the athletes before, I think, we're really done a disservice by not being able to benefit from that. But I think they're going to have to. I think they're at some point the NCAA and colleges in general are going to have to possibly scale back because I know the transfer portal has become a big thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be careful on what I say because I don't know the ins and outs, but I think that's become. I think athletes nowadays in college are, I would say, slightly motivated to get into the transfer portal. As soon as something doesn't work out for you, you just
Yeah.
up and leave. And there's a piece of that. I think for a lot of athletes that works, but I think there's a good number of them that once you see a challenge, once you see some adversity, you just pack your bags up and you leave and you're off to the next situation. And the grass is usually not greener on the other side in pro
Right.
sports and in college sports. So I think that is doing a disservice to some players that are able to just pick up and leave when things get hard. I think part of the college experience is learning to fight through adversity, learning to face adversity head on and figure out a way, find, problem solve. And I think a lot of college athletes nowadays are missing that opportunity because they are so easily able to just get up and leave.
Yeah, it's a hard balance, isn't it? I mean, you on the
Yeah,
one hand, you want to give players the freedom to move if that's what's right for them, but sometimes restricting the freedom to move is in some respects in their best interest, even if it might not
right.
seem that way. Um, well, let's talk about outside of basketball. As I mentioned in the introduction, you've been involved in a range of organizations and have pushed on a number of issues, whether it's related to educational access or literacy or health equality or access to clean water. So first of all, thank you for all that you do. But second, how do you decide which issues to focus on, whether it's here or abroad? Because I know your work is both in this country and abroad.
Yeah, I think it's sort of for me a landscape that continues to change. I think as you go through life, you have everybody says you have one purpose. I think you can have different purposes based on that time period in your life. And early on, my parents took me to Africa when I was 9, 10 years old. Took me and my brothers to Africa, West Africa. I went to Ghana and we spent 3 weeks there.
Mm.
And over there, as literally as a child, I got to see poverty. Really, really bad poverty at a young age, and it stuck with me. I wasn't really able to understand it, but I knew something made me uncomfortable when I was there, and it
Yeah.
was something that always stuck with me. So ever since then, I always wanted to one go back to Africa, and I was fascinated with the continent, but also make a change, make a difference. And I've had a lot of people, since I've had my clean water efforts, say, why don't you do work here? Why don't you do work in domestically clean water wise? Because I don't do domestic clean water. I do domestic education
Right.
work here. My response is, one, I think the poverty there is worse
Right.
if you look at the poverty levels. But I also think that's where my heart is. That's always been where my heart is. That's where I was first taken and as a kid and felt those emotions of empathy, compassion, all those things, and really seeing people struggle on a level I had never seen or experienced before. And as I got older, really being at UVA was what made me want to really approach clean water specifically, rather than food, rather than clothing, rather than health or sanitation. I really wanted to tackle clean water because I think it is the biggest necessity for people in our world. So that's what I've done. I have my nonprofit, the Brogdon Family Foundation. To put it very simply, we've been digging wells for years now, all over East Africa, mainly Tanzania and Kenya, and we've served hundreds of thousands of people. And it's been, I think, very impactful and very fulfilling, and it's helped a lot of people.
So let me ask you about the related topic of athletes speaking out on issues of social justice or racial justice. And you mentioned Muhammad Ali, who was obviously really outspoken. And as a professional athlete, you have an unparalleled platform in some respects. What are your thoughts generally about athletes and taking advantage of that platform? Because it's some people, aren't fans of it, and others think you're wasting an opportunity if you don't pursue it. How do you wrestle with that in your own mind?
Early on in my career, years ago, I thought we have a responsibility as athletes. We have this platform to speak out for those that don't have the light, the platform, the stage to speak on. And I'm at the point now in my career, I think over the past couple of years, I believe you do what you're comfortable with. I think there are people that don't want to lead from the front. They want to lead in other ways. They don't want to speak out. That's not going to be how they impact the world. And for me, I've decided I am going to speak out on injustice, on things that are not right. I'm going to speak out on them. I encourage athletes to speak out if they're comfortable, but I also encourage athletes to be as informed as possible, because just because you are speaking out does not mean you are an expert in the subject or you are the most informed. I want people to be prepared for everything that comes with the scrutiny that comes with speaking out. Because even as I've spoke out in my career at times, there's scrutiny. I face scrutiny from a lot of people that,
Right.
you don't know what you're talking about, whatever. And it's challenged me to be more informed for the next opportunity. So, that's been my stance
Right.
as of late.
Right. And what are the issues that you're most concerned about? So when you're going to speak out on something, is it consistent with a particular set of topics, the way your philanthropic work has focused a lot on clean water, or is it injustices that you see and you feel like I could add my voice to this and it might make a difference?
Mine, since I've been in the NBA, my biggest focus as far as public speaking or speaking out has not as much been on my nonprofit and what drives me overseas as far as clean water. It's been more on social justice.
Yeah.
It's been more on what impacts my everyday life, my friends, my family, people in my community, people that look like me. That's been my biggest focus, because no matter how much money you make, no matter what type of position you hold, you're always going to be impacted by this. Still, I'm pulled over by the cops just because,
Right.
they see a black man in a car with tinted windows. That stuff still happens.
Right.
And although I am treated different once they see who I am and they recognize me,
Yeah.
then everything is good. But that it's always a constant reminder to me that this is an unjust society that we live
Right.
in, and black men and women don't deserve to go through this.
Right.
And it takes men and women like me that do have the platform to speak up to change that situation.
Yeah, amen. And I think you're exactly right that you're in a position to reach people who might not otherwise listen.
Yeah, I think whether or not we are the most informed as athletes, I think people listen. I think politicians listen. I think people of influence listen to us.
Right.
So that's why I encourage people in my position to be as informed as possible, because people are listening. No matter what you put out there, you are going to be heard. Make sure it's creating positive change in our society and for the people you want to impact.
Right. Well, and if you're talking about personal experience too, I mean, you're talking from a position of knowledge.
This stuff will never change, and then my kids will go through it. So I want to create the best world possible.
All right. So let's go backwards and then forwards for the last couple of questions. Back to your time at UVA. Am I right? You lived on the range your fifth year?
I lived on the range my fifth year. The range was a great experience. I met a lot of really amazing people and leaders, but there were some rough nights on the range. That's what people don't talk about.
Would you like to talk about them, Malcolm?
This is going to turn into a therapy session. No, I really did enjoy it. I really stepped up on a limb because I usually don't do things like that. It was really out of my comfort zone, but I had people around me that were like, look, you can, not only will it add on to your legacy at the university, but you have the chance to do something special that a lot of people don't get a chance to do while they're in school at UVA. So I'm really thankful that I did it.
So the forward-looking question, life after professional basketball. How often do you think about it? Is this something you're putting off to the future? Or do you have a 10-point plan for what you're going to do once you leave the NBA?
I'm definitely somewhere in between. It's something I think about very often. I probably think about it every single day. I do not have a 10-point plan. Right now, life after basketball for me, I think looks like a move to Europe with my family. I think that's something we really want to do. I think
Mm.
for my girls, having them learn multiple languages, having them be exposed to people outside of the United States, different cultures, having different experiences. Because for me, I look back to 25 years ago when I got to go to Africa. It really shaped who I am. And I would be doing my kids a disservice if I didn't allow them that opportunity as well. So moving to Europe immediately after, whether it's London, Amsterdam, Zurich, those are three of the cities we love, me and my
Right.
wife love. But moving there and allowing my kids and then me and my wife to experience something different and challenging us to grow in a different environment.
Right. That sounds like a good plan. Even if it doesn't have 10 points, it
Yeah.
sounds like a good plan.
Right. That's like a 1-point plan.
Inside UVA is a production of WTJU 91.1 FM and the Office of the President at the University of Virginia. Inside UVA is produced by Jaden Evans, Ariane Ballou, Mary Gardner McGee, and Matt Weber. Special thanks to Maria Jones and McGregor McCants. Our music is Turning to You from Blue Dot Sessions. You can listen and subscribe to Inside UVA on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back soon with another conversation about the life of the university.